The Swordsmith village arc of Demon Slayer is the show's third season, and it brought us double trouble with twice the amount of Hashira and Upper Moons when compared to the Entertainment District or the Mugen Train arcs. And with the stunning performance of those two under its belt, the third season was bound to be a banger. Right? Yeah, no, it wasn't. Hello and welcome, you beautiful people. A few things before we get started good and proper. First, this video only focuses on certain issues I had with the latest season of Demon Slayer, and my general thoughts, praise and criticism can already be found in a review video linked in the description and pinned comment below. That one is about everything prior to the Swordsmith village, but it still holds mostly true here as well. Second, if you enjoy this video, please do subscribe to the channel as I am trying to reach that magical 1000 this year. And third, well, there's gonna be some spoilers, so consider yourselves warned if you haven't seen the third season yet. Okay, so, third season of Demon Slayer isn't doubly as good as the Entertainment District arc, and if I'm being completely honest, it's not even as good as the second season. But it's still not bad as far as anime in general goes. It's just that the name Demon Slayer nowadays comes with some pretty big shoes to fill, which really weren't filled here. There are still some awesome moments, but as a whole, it just doesn't stand up to what came before. One thing I praised Demon Slayer for in my review video was the generally good pacing established towards the end of Season 1, and how, even so, the pacing does sometimes fail, especially during some fights where the internal monologue of characters ends up causing everything around them to just stop. These stoppages were irksome, but didn't ruin the experience as a whole, since they were by and large short, and instantly led to some more pure hype-inducing fights. And this is the biggest gripe I have with the third season. These time freezes did not remain short. Instead, the show went full My Hero Academia with excessive flashback that just completely shat on any pretense of pacing. Take the flashback about Genya's past, for example. It takes half an episode just to go through the character's backstory, stopping everything right in the high point of a fight, and it's the same for both of the Hashira introduced this season, those being Mitsuri and Muichiro. Every time a flashback such as this happens, everything else freezes entirely. It's mostly not even convenient stoppages, no, time just stops, with no regard to what is going on or how invested the viewers are in the action unfolding. Compare this to how we learned about characters in the past seasons of Demon Slayer. There were specific segments laid out in the story for this kind of character building, which were all placed in a way where they didn't interfere with the best aspect of the show, that being the fights, since, let's be honest, the gorgeous looking battles are the most popular and beloved part of Demon Slayer, and really the only thing that raises it above an average well-executed shonen. We learned about Shinobu's past at the mansion where Tanjiro and the rest were recuperating, and similarly, Rengoku's was slowly revealed after his passing when Tanjiro went to meet his family. Okay, some of Uzui's past overlapped with bigger recent events, but when that happened it was only for a few minutes at most, and not right as an enemy's attack was about to land. And it's not just the flashbacks that failed to impress this season. Take Muichiro vs Gyokko. It's the second time we have seen a Hashira best and Upper Moon, and whereas Uzui and the gang versus the siblings that were the Upper Moon 6, it was kind of a slow built-in fire that little by little grew into a raging inferno of pure hype. The missed Hashira's fight with Upper 5 had very little going on for it. It was almost as if nothing happened, and for the most part, let's face it, very little actually did. It sort of all got vomited out at once, and bam, Muichiro won a second or two later. Yes, I know, it's meant to convey the significance of the Demon Slayer mark and the power it provides, but the way it was laid out was so out of tune with what we as viewers have come to expect from Demon Slayer that it just ended up feeling disappointing and insignificant. This is supposed to be an Upper Moon, one of the 6 most powerful demons on the Muzan. Previously we've been taught that whenever one appears, it'll be an uphill struggle with significant consequences, and then we get Gyokko clowning with Muichiro, which really does nothing. Gyokko never felt threatening, and not once did it really feel like Muichiro was truly struggling against him either, which meant that the eventual victory carried next to no weight. In the end, it all comes down to perceived threat, which was never established for Gyokko. We never saw him fight anyone besides normal humans and a Hashira. He had power-ups, sure, throughout the fight, but that did nothing to fix the problem since there was no establishing of his power done first. X times 10 is a meaningless increase if you don't know what X is. It really ended up feeling like we were just being told that, oh yeah, he's an upper moon, that means strong, honest, which just didn't work. At least Mitsuri vs Upper Moon 4 felt like she was fighting an Upper Moon, and then we see next to nothing of the fight itself. The way I understand it, this season's goals were to show us the Demon Slayer mark as well as raise Tanjiro's significance as the one who has now fought and slain 2 Upper Moons. That and shove a ridiculous amount of willpower overcomes all into the fights, which, yes, I get it, is a staple of shonen, but it doesn't need to be this on the nose. But it isn't all bad. I did mention that it is still a good season as far as average anime goes. It just failed to have that ooh factor the entertainment district had. I really enjoyed, for example, the little hints to the capabilities of the sun breathing and how it can be molded into having features and capabilities of other breathing styles, since, you know, it was the original from whence the others came. And the last episode, for the most part, was absolutely gorgeous, and as such, I will not spoil it. But now that we are through the actual issues I have, there are a few more things I feel important to mention. These weren't really flaws, but something still worthy of mentioning, since at least one of them garnered a lot of criticism on social media. But I'll save that for a little later, and first talk about something else that I felt wasn't done badly, but wasn't really ideal either, that being the hour-long special at the very start of the season. The first episode of this season was weird. It was an episode that was made for the big screen, since that is how it was shown in a lot of countries. It was made to be that big hit item to kick off one of the most anticipated anime seasons of the year in style, and to make a lot of money. The problem is, very little actually happens in it, and they honestly leaned a tad too far into the cinematic experience, which just doesn't work as well if you're watching it anywhere but the cinema. There were long shots that served no purpose besides garnering oohs and ahs in the theatre. It's an hour of setup that was specifically designed to be at its best in a specific environment. It's still good when viewed at home, but it ends up feeling like an overstretched episode with the same amount of content as a normal length one, just with some added visual flair, which weirdly wasn't even the kind of flair fans have come to expect from Demon Slayer. And lastly, the one thing that got many a fan angry on social media, and that is the CGI we saw in this season. Weirdly, this is one of the things I personally had no problems with, but since a lot of people hated it, I felt it prudent to mention. Okay, yes, some of the CGI looks quite rough, and as a whole it just isn't as good as what we saw in the Entertainment District arc, for example, but it isn't really bad either, it's just kind of is. And that is pretty much my 2 cents on the latest and not greatest season of Demon Slayer. It really is suffering from the success of the previous seasons. Mugen Train and Entertainment District slapped hard, and even season 1 got there in the end. Admittedly, so did the Swordsmith Village arc, but while the first season could be excused since we didn't know better, that can't be said for this 3rd season. We have seen what Demon Slayer can be, and this just wasn't it. For the previous seasons, I gave an 8 for execution and a full 10 for enjoyment, and this season just wasn't as good or as enjoyable. It felt more like an average well-done shonen like My Hero, and as such, it gets the same rating as an average would. 7 for execution and 8 for enjoyment. Still, I'd like to reiterate, this season of Demon Slayer was good, and it had some gorgeous moments in it, it's just that the lows were far bigger than previously, and that really deduced from my enjoyment of it. I am holding out hope that Season 4 will remedy these issues and again go back to that high horse of being pure entertainment value, spiced with astronomical hype, but only time will tell. And finally, before I go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Did you agree or disagree with my verdict? Do you love the latest season regardless of its issues? Or, like me, were you dissatisfied with what followed the absolute hype left behind the anime gold that was Season 2? If you like this, like it, dislike if you didn't, subscribe for more anime goodness, and to help me reach that magical 1k, go have a look at some of my other content if you are so inclined, then check the links in the description if you want to engage with me outside of YouTube. With this, I have been Cheese, and hope to see you next time. Ta-ta for now.